Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Office Hours with the Professor. As always, I'm your host, William the Professor Collis, and I'm super excited to dig into, I think, a news story this week that you're not going to guess what it is, but it's an important one. So let's surprise you with the topic. It is the rise of 3D billboards to promote games. I don't know if you have noticed this trend, but it really seems to be a trend. We've seen, I think, now Resident Evil and Fortnite do 3D billboards in Times Square. I believe Call of Duty did a 3D billboard in London. But actually, the one that caught my eye was, I think it was a VALORANT 3D billboard that popped up in Dubai to promote the new Agent Harbor. And so what we're going to do on this week's Office Hours is just talk a little about why are we seeing so many games use 3D billboards as a marketing tactic. And I believe there are actually 3 reasons for this. So the first reason, get it out of the way, is these things look great. They look a lot better than you might actually expect. If you haven't seen them, they use kind of animation to really break the border of the 2D billboard image, and it really looks like the world and the characters come alive. They really catch your eye. So one is, I think these things just look cooler than maybe people who haven't seen them realize. So that's one reason, but not a super interesting one, I think. Second reason why I think we're seeing more of these billboards is just how mainstream games have become, right? When you put a billboard up, everyone walking by sees it. And if you're trying to reach, 1% of the general market, maybe not a good investment. But given how many people play games today, marketing to everyone that walks by starts to look like a pretty valid marketing tactic. So that's the second reason I think we're seeing more of these. But the third reason is, I think, maybe a little bit less positive one. It's just, it is getting really, really hard to reach gamers with traditional marketing, particularly digital marketing, because of just how cluttered the market is getting, right? So think about it. Like, obviously, I think publishers would rather market to people digitally where they can click a link and instantly buy the thing that's being offered, or in the case of many of these things, literally get it for free because they're free to play, right? I mean, that is a pretty powerful proposition. But the fact is, the market is just so busy for this, it's harder and harder to be effective with just digital advertising. And so these sort of break frame real world advertising activations like 3D billboards are effective because they're notable. We haven't seen them very often until recently. I think that's why this is happening. But what does this mean, right? What's the value here? And I think for the big publishers, I think it sort of means, hey, they're going to have to continue to experiment with novel marketing tactics. And I think that means that we might actually see some really interesting innovations in esports marketing coming forward, not just throwbacks to sort of classic, billboard marketing techniques of yesteryear. I think that's interesting. But I think for smaller publishers, look, if you can't afford a billboard in Times Square, which is, most indies, for example, what does that say about how you're going to promote your game and reach a new audience? And it's particularly troubling because, the reality of games, and people don't often talk about this, is competing purely on quality alone is a tough proposition because many AAA games, in fact, I'd argue most, are really, really good. Try going toe-to-toe on quality with Horizon Forbidden West or, say, the new God of War. That's not a bet I'd like to take. Ironically, I think for smaller and indie publishers, this might mean the importance of esports goes up. We haven't seen these being adopted, esports being adopted as much by smaller sort of, developers and publishers. But I think it can be a very cost-effective way of building momentum for a title, sustaining a title, and, leveraging the existing community. And if you don't believe me, just look at how Age of Empires, for example, was able to sustain on its competitive scene. So I think, oddly enough, when I look at this 3D billboard phenomenon, I really trace it through to, hey, we might be seeing more esports activations amongst smaller developers and indie developers, just simply because of the difficulty of reaching markets today and the power of esports, if well executed, as a cost-effective marketing channel. So that's what I wanted to cover on Office Hours this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I have to give the greatest story, so I give it a pass because I don't know how to grade this one, but sure, pass. They did a great job. They turned in all the assignments, I guess. I don't know. And I hope you'll join me for another episode of Office Hours next week. Thank you so much.